The alarm systems across Zenith Prime Station screamed warnings that made no sense. Ambassador Thakren watched the main display with growing confusion as his four eyes tried to process what the sensors were telling him. Something massive was coming out of empty space, tearing through reality itself like paper being ripped apart. The object that emerged made the ambassador's blood run cold. It was a warship, larger than anything he had seen in his 300 years of service to the Galactic Council. Its hull was dark and scarred, covered in burns and impacts from weapons that shouldn't exist anymore. The metal looked ancient, corroded by time itself, yet the ship's engines still glowed with power. Strange symbols marked its side, letters from a writing system that predated modern galactic civilization by thousands of years. Thakren pressed his communicator with a trembling claw. "Get me the historical archives immediately. I need identification on this vessel." Around him, the council chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 847 different species began shouting questions and demands. Some called for military response. Others wanted to flee. The mantis-like ambassador raised his arms for silence, but nobody was listening anymore. The ancient warship hung in space like a ghost from a forgotten era. Its weapon systems were powered down, but every military analyst in the station could see the truth. Those guns were old, yes, but they were built with technology that modern science barely understood. If that ship decided to fight, Zenith Prime wouldn't survive the encounter. Then the transmission came through. The audio was broken and filled with static, but the words were clear enough to make Thakren's heart skip several beats. The language was old, so old that the computer needed 17 seconds to find a translation matrix. When it did, the message played across every speaker in the station. "This is the United Earth Spaceship Indomitable, Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We are returning home after mission completion. Please provide current navigational coordinates for Earth, Sol System, Orion Arm. Requesting immediate assistance. Our crew is in critical condition." The silence that followed was absolute. Earth. Sol 3. The dead world. The planet that had destroyed itself in nuclear fire 20,000 years ago, leaving nothing but radioactive dust and broken cities. Every schoolchild in the galaxy learned about Earth as a warning. A cautionary tale about what happened when a species discovered weapons before wisdom. But here was a ship, claiming to be from Earth, asking for directions home. Thakren made a decision. Open a channel, and someone wake up our linguist experts, all of them. It took 6 hours to establish proper communication. The ship's AI was sophisticated but ancient, operating on principles that modern computers had abandoned millennia ago. When the channel finally stabilized, 3 faces appeared on the screen, and Thakren found himself staring at creatures he had only seen in archaeological reconstructions. Humans. Actual living humans. The woman in the center wore a uniform that was falling apart at the seams. Her hair was gray and white, pulled back from a face lined with exhaustion. Her eyes were the color of Earth's ancient oceans, blue and deep and currently filled with confusion. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Indomitable. Who am I speaking with?" Thakren stood straighter, trying to project calm authority while his mind raced with impossible questions. "I am Ambassador Thakren of the Velkari people, currently serving as primary administrator of Zenith Prime, capital station of the Galactic Council." "Captain Chen, I must ask you a very important question. What year did you leave Earth?" The woman glanced at someone off-screen, then back at the camera. "We departed Earth in the year 22,314 by the common calendar. Our mission was a 500-year expedition to establish first contact with civilizations in the Outer Rim. We've been gone for 532 years, but we ran into some problems with a dark space anomaly." "Why are you asking?" 500 years. They thought they had been gone for 500 years. Thakren felt a wave of pity wash over him. How could he tell them? How could anyone deliver this kind of news? "Captain Chen, I'm afraid I have some very difficult information to share with you. The current year by the old Earth calendar is 42,831. You haven't been gone for 500 years. You've been gone for 20,517 years. The woman's face went white. Behind her, someone cursed loudly. A third voice, male and shaking, said something that the translator couldn't process properly. Chen gripped the edges of her command chair so hard her knuckles turned white. "That's impossible. Our clocks, our systems, everything says we've only been gone for 5 centuries. How can 20,000 years have passed? Dark space anomalies can cause severe temporal distortion, Thakren explained gently. You experience time at one rate while the universe continued at another. Captain, there's something else you need to know. According to our historical records, Earth was destroyed approximately 18,000 years ago. The planet is listed as uninhabitable, a dead world consumed by nuclear war. The silence stretched on for 10 full seconds. Then Captain Chen's expression changed. The shock disappeared, replaced by something harder, something that made Thakren remember that this woman commanded a warship that could probably level his entire station. Ambassador, Chen said softly, your records are wrong. I'm looking at our long-range sensors right now, and I can see the Sol system from here. Earth's biosignature is strong. The planet is alive. Someone has been living on my home world, and I want to know who. The signal cut off before Thakren could respond. In the silence that followed, every being in the council chamber understood what had just happened. They had told these ancient humans that their world was dead. They had lied, whether intentionally or not. And now a 20,000-year-old warship was heading for Earth, with a crew that had just learned their entire civilization should be extinct. Thakren looked at the readings coming from the Indomitable's power systems and made another decision. Prepare my personal ship. I'm going with them. And someone tell me everything we really know about what happened to Earth, because something tells me the official story is about to fall apart. The journey to Earth should have taken 3 weeks with modern drives. The Indomitable needed 6 because its engines were running on technology that predated most of the species in the Galactic Council. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge watching the stars slide past and tried not to think about everything she had lost. 20,000 years. Her parents were dust. Her friends were dust. The world she had left behind, the cities and cultures and entire civilizations she had known, all of it was gone. She had left Earth as a young captain in humanity's first great adventure into deep space. She was coming back as a ghost. Behind her, Ambassador Thakren worked at a temporary console the crew had set up for him. The mantis-like alien had insisted on joining them, claiming he wanted to ensure a peaceful first contact. Sarah suspected the truth was simpler. He wanted to see what had really happened to Earth, and he didn't trust the official story any more than she did. Captain, you should see this. That was Marcus Webb, her chief engineer. He looked terrible, with dark circles under his eyes and hands that shook when he thought nobody was watching. Marcus had a daughter back on Earth, or at least he used to. Now that daughter had been dead for 20,000 years, and Marcus was barely holding himself together. Sarah walked over to his station. What do you have? I've been going through our long-range database, cross-referencing it with the information Ambassador Thakren provided. 3 of the colonies we were supposed to visit are gone. Not destroyed exactly, but empty. The infrastructure is still there, but there's no life, no power signatures, nothing. Just ruins. The screen showed images of dead cities on airless worlds. Buildings that had once housed thousands of humans now stood silent under alien stars. Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. What happened to them? Thakren approached, his multiple legs making soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. The official records say these colonies were abandoned during the resource wars of the 35th millennium. But Captain, I've been reviewing the historical archives more carefully. The timeline doesn't match. These colonies went silent thousands of years before the supposed wars began. Sarah met his compound eyes. You think someone is lying about our history? I think someone has been lying about humanity's history for a very long time. Dr. Amara Okonkwo emerged from the medical bay where she had been reviewing biological samples. The xenobiologist looked exhausted but determined. I found something in the ship's memory banks. The Indomitable wasn't alone. Earth launched 12 expedition ships, all identical to ours, all heading in different directions. According to the departure manifest, we should have all returned within the same century. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Let me guess, none of the others came back. According to the galactic records, no. We're the only one that survived. But here's the strange part. There are reports throughout the past 20,000 years of ghost ships appearing in various sectors. Ancient vessels matching the Indomitable's design, seen briefly before vanishing again. What if the other ships hit the same temporal anomaly we did? What if they're still out there, lost in dark space, trying to find their way home? The bridge fell silent. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, 11 more ships might be wandering, their crews believing they had only been gone a few centuries, unaware that humanity had apparently died and the galaxy had moved on without them. Marcus broke the silence. Why didn't anyone look for us? 12 ships disappear and nobody launches rescue missions? Because by the time you were officially declared lost, Thakren said quietly, Earth had already fallen to the Archons. Sarah spun to face him. What did you say? The ambassador's antenna drooped in what Sarah was learning to recognize as regret.
I wasn't supposed to tell you this.
The council leadership wanted to control the information flow, but you deserve the truth. Earth wasn't destroyed by nuclear war. 21,000 years ago, a species called the Archons invaded your system. They were an ancient race, powerful beyond measure, with technology that could enslave entire worlds through psychic connection. They took Earth, Captain. They conquered your people and ruled them for 3,000 years. The rage that filled Sarah was hot enough to burn stars, and the council did nothing. The council didn't exist yet, not in its current form. By the time we had the power to challenge the Archons, they had vanished. They abandoned Earth and disappeared into the space between galaxies. We assumed they had taken humanity with them, or exterminated them entirely. The nuclear war story was created later, to explain why Earth was empty when survey ships finally reached the system. Marcus slammed his fist on the console. So for 18,000 years, while you all built your perfect galactic civilization, nobody bothered to check if any humans actually survived. That's not entirely fair, Thakren began, but Sarah cut him off. Isn't it? You erased us. You decided we were extinct and didn't bother to verify. Well, guess what, Ambassador? We're not extinct. Someone is living on Earth, and I'm going to find out who. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut. Then an alarm sounded and all personal conflicts were forgotten in an instant. Captain, we're entering the Sol system, reported the navigation officer, and we're being scanned by multiple defense platforms. Very sophisticated designs unlike anything in the database. The view screen shifted, showing Earth's home system. The sun burned bright and familiar, exactly as Sarah remembered it. But everything else was wrong. The asteroid belt was filled with massive stations. Mars had orbital rings. Jupiter's moons were covered in cities. And Earth itself was surrounded by a network of defense satellites that would have been impossible with the technology humanity possessed when she left. Then the communication panel lit up with an incoming transmission. The voice that came through spoke English, but the accent was strange. The words clipped and formal in a way that suggested the language had evolved significantly. Unidentified vessel. This is Terran Commonwealth Defense Command. You are entering restricted space. Power down your weapons and state your identification or you will be fired upon. This is your only warning. Sarah looked at Thakren, then at her crew. She had left Earth as an explorer, a representative of humanity's hope and curiosity. She was returning to a world that didn't know her, defended by people who spoke her language but thought she was a threat. She opened the channel, keeping her voice steady and strong. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Spaceship Indomitable, serial number 7732, launched from Earth in the year 22,314. We are returning from a long-range expedition mission. I am requesting permission to approach Earth and return home. The silence that followed lasted for nearly a minute. When the response came, the voice on the other end was shaking. Indomitable. The ghost ship. You're really real. Stand by for escort. The Chancellor is going to want to meet you personally. Welcome home, Captain Chen. Welcome to the Terran Commonwealth. The Earth that Sarah Chen saw through the landing shuttle's windows was both familiar and completely alien. The continents were in the right places, the oceans still blue and vast, but everything else had changed. Massive towers reached into the sky, taller than anything from her time. The city sprawled across entire regions, connected by transportation networks that glowed with energy. And above it all, the orbital defense platforms hung like guardian angels, bristling with weapons that made the Indomitable look like a museum piece. They landed at a facility in what used to be called Geneva. The landing pad was surrounded by soldiers in armor that looked more advanced than anything Sarah had seen, even in the Galactic Council's military. When the shuttle door opened, she stepped out onto soil she hadn't touched in 20,000 years and felt tears burning in her eyes. The welcoming party was led by a woman who carried herself like someone used to command. She was tall, with dark skin and gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her uniform was crisp and formal, decorated with medals that Sarah didn't recognize. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Captain Chen, I am Chancellor Elena Vasquez, leader of the Terran Commonwealth. On behalf of all humanity, I welcome you home. I only wish the circumstances were better. Sarah saluted out of instinct, then felt foolish. She was saluting a government that hadn't existed when she left. Chancellor, I have many questions, and I will answer them all. But first, you and your crew need rest and medical attention. You've been in stasis for longer than any human should survive. It's a miracle you're alive at all. They were taken to a facility that was part hospital, part research center, part military base. Over the next 3 days, doctors examined them while historians interviewed them, recording every detail of the world they had left behind. Sarah submitted to it all patiently, but what she really wanted was answers. On the 4th day, Chancellor Vasquez invited her to a private meeting in a room with walls made of transparent steel, overlooking a city that never slept. The Chancellor poured 2 glasses of something that tasted like whiskey, but had a smoothness that suggested 20,000 years of refinement. You want to know what happened? Vasquez said. It wasn't a question. I want to know why the galaxy thinks we're extinct when we're clearly not. The Chancellor took a long drink before answering. Because for 3,000 years we might as well have been. The Archons came when you were gone, Captain. They arrived with ships that could crack planets and minds that could bend entire populations to their will. They didn't negotiate. They didn't offer terms. They simply took control. Sarah listened as Vasquez explained the horror. The Archons had a weapon, a psychic network that could connect to most species' neural patterns and force complete obedience. They had used it to enslave hundreds of worlds, building an empire that stretched across multiple galaxies. Earth was just one more conquest, its people reduced to biological components in a vast machine. But we had something they didn't expect, Vasquez continued. Human neural chemistry is different from most species. The Archon network could affect us, but it couldn't completely control us. Some people, maybe 1 in 1,000, were completely immune. Others could resist for short periods. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The resistance, Sarah said. The last rising. It took nearly 3,000 years, but we learned. We studied our captors. We stole their technology. We built weapons, in secret, passed down through generations that knew nothing but slavery. And then 15,000 years ago we struck. Every hidden cell, every secret base, every resistance fighter activated at once. We killed them, Captain. We killed every Archon on Earth and destroyed every one of their ships in our system. The pride in Vasquez's voice was mixed with something darker. Sarah recognized it because she had felt it herself during combat missions. It was the satisfaction of survival earned through violence. What happened to the Archons after that? They left. They abandoned this part of the galaxy entirely. We assumed we had hurt them badly enough that they decided we weren't worth the trouble. So we stayed hidden. We used their cloaking technology to hide our worlds. We spread false information through the galactic networks, making everyone think Earth was radioactive and dead, and we rebuilt. We took everything the Archons had taught us, everything we had learned from defeating them, and we made ourselves strong. Sarah looked out at the city below. Millions of people living and working, building a civilization that had been forged in slavery and war. You've been preparing for them to come back. We've been preparing for the entire galaxy to be our enemy if necessary. The Council didn't help us when the Archons came. Why would we trust them now? Before Sarah could respond, Marcus burst into the room, followed by Dr. Okonkwo. The engineer's face was pale, his hands shaking as he held a datapad. Captain, you need to see this. Now. The datapad showed sensor readings from long-range observation posts at the edge of the galaxy. Sarah didn't understand most of the technical details, but she understood the conclusion. Ships were moving in the void between galaxies, thousands of them, maybe millions, and their energy signatures matched the Archon vessels that had been found in Earth's historical databases. They're coming back, Okonkwo said quietly. The Archons are returning, and they're bringing an army. Chancellor Vasquez took the datapad and reviewed it with the calm efficiency of someone who had been expecting this moment for years. How long do we have? 18 months. Maybe less if they have better drives than we think. The Chancellor nodded slowly, then looked at Sarah. Captain Chen, I'm going to be blunt. The Indomitable is a symbol. It's proof that humanity had a past before the Archons, that we were explorers and dreamers before we became warriors. I want to use your ship to announce Earth's return to the galactic stage. I want every species in the Council to know that humanity survived, and that we're not asking for permission to exist anymore. Sarah thought about the dead colonies she had seen on the way here. She thought about 20,000 years of human suffering, of generations born into slavery, of people who had fought and died just to earn the right to be free. And she thought about the Archons coming back with an army that could enslave the entire galaxy. What do you need from me? Vasquez smiled, and for the first time, it looked genuine. Help me convince the galaxy to fight. The Council thinks we're a myth or a threat. You're evidence that we're neither. You're the bridge between who we were and who we've become. The Archons are coming for everyone, not just Earth. If we don't work together, we'll all fall separately. Marcus spoke up from behind Sarah. There's something else. I've been going through the Indomitable's systems and I found something strange. The ship has components that don't match the rest of the design, pieces that were added in secret before we launched. I think someone knew this was going to happen. I think someone prepared for it. Sarah turned to look at her engineer. What kind of components? The kind that could activate a defense network. Captain, I think the Indomitable isn't just a warship. I think it's a key, and whatever it unlocks has been waiting for us to come home for 20,000 years. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Outside, the sun was setting on a world that had survived extinction. Inside, 5 people stared at each other and realized that the war they had been dreading was about to begin, whether they were ready or not. Ambassador Thakren stood before the Galactic Council and wondered if he was about to commit career suicide. Around him, representatives from 847 species filled the chamber, their voices creating a noise that sounded like chaos given form. They were arguing about Earth, about the Archons, about whether any of this was real or just human propaganda. Order! The council speaker, a crystalline being named Jarketh, rang a chime that cut through the noise. Ambassador Thakren has requested emergency session time. We will hear him. Thakren stepped forward, his 4 legs steady despite the nervousness coursing through his body. Thank you, Speaker. I have just returned from Earth. The world we all believed was dead is very much alive. The humans have not only survived, they have thrived, and they bring warning of an existential threat to our entire civilization. He activated the holographic display, showing the sensor data from the void. The images of Archon ships moving in formation silenced the chamber faster than any call for order could have. The Archons are returning, Thakren continued. Our intelligence estimates they will reach Council space within 18 months. They bring with them a fleet numbering in the millions built over 18,000 years of preparation. And according to human historical records, their psychic network can enslave most known species within minutes of exposure. A representative from the Kelhari Collective, a species known for their militant stance, spoke up. Even if this is true, why should we trust the humans? They've been hiding from us for thousands of years. How do we know they're not the real threat? Before Thakren could respond, a new voice cut through the chamber. Captain Sarah Chen walked in, escorted by Chancellor Vasquez and a contingent of Commonwealth guards. She moved with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to prove and everything to fight for. You don't have to trust us, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, but you should trust your own survival instinct. The Archons will come whether you believe in them or not. When they do, they won't negotiate. They won't offer terms. They'll simply take control of your minds and turn you into slaves. Earth learned this the hard way. We paid the price in blood and suffering. Now we're offering you a chance to avoid the same fate. Chancellor Vasquez stepped forward. The Terran Commonwealth proposes an alliance. We will share our anti-Archon weapons technology, our knowledge of their tactics, and our defense systems. In exchange, we ask for full membership in the Galactic Council, reparations for the 3,000 years of abandonment, and a unified military response to the Archon threat. The chamber erupted into debate. Some species saw the logic in the proposal. Others saw it as blackmail. A few suggested that humanity was exaggerating the threat to gain power. Thakren watched it all and felt his hope dying. The council was too fractured, too political to act quickly. Then the alarm sounded. The holographic display shifted, showing real-time sensor data from a colony world called Threshold 7. Archon ships were coming out of dimensional folds, dozens of them attacking without warning. The colony's defenses were being overwhelmed within minutes. "That colony has 40 million inhabitants," Jarketh said, his crystalline voice shaking. "We have ships in the area, but they won't arrive for hours." "The Indomitable can be there in 30 minutes, Sarah said. "Give me clearance and we'll defend your people." The speaker looked at her, then at Vasquez, then at the data showing millions of lives hanging in the balance. "Granted. Save them, Captain." Sarah was already running. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Threshold 7 and immediately opened fire. The old warship's weapons had been designed to fight unknown threats with overwhelming force, and against the Archon ships, they proved devastatingly effective. Energy beams that could crack planetary crust tore through Archon armor. Missiles loaded with experimental warheads detonated in patterns that disrupted their shields. But Sarah wasn't alone. Chancellor Vasquez had sent 12 ships from Earth's defense fleet, each one a modern interpretation of the Indomitable's design. They moved in perfect formation, their tactics honed by 15,000 years of preparation for exactly this moment. Marcus worked frantically at the engineering station, routing power to weapons that were never meant to fire continuously. "Captain, the old girl is holding together, but I don't know for how long." "Keep her running, Marcus. We just need to last until Council reinforcements arrive." Dr. Okonkwo was at the sensor station, analyzing the Archon ships as they fought. "Captain, I'm detecting psychic broadcasts from the Archon vessels. They're trying to establish neural connections with the colonists below, but the signals are being disrupted by something like there's interference." Sarah felt a cold realization wash over her. "It's us." "They're trying to connect to human neural patterns too, and it's creating noise in their network. We're jamming them just by being here." The battle raged for 2 hours. The Indomitable took hits that would have destroyed lesser ships, her ancient armor absorbing damage that made Marcus weep at his console. 3 of the Earth ships were destroyed, their crews dying to protect people they had never met. But when Council reinforcements finally arrived, the Archons retreated, fleeing back into dimensional folds. Sarah stood on her bridge, watching the rescue operations begin below, and felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. They had won, but barely, and this was just a scouting force. The real invasion was still coming. Back at Zenith Prime, the Council held an emergency vote. The images of human ships defending a Council world, of Earth's forces bleeding to protect strangers, had changed minds. Not all of them, but enough. The vote passed. Earth was granted full Council membership, and more importantly, a joint task force was authorized to prepare for the Archon invasion. In the weeks that followed, Sarah watched as volunteers from 23 species joined the defensive fleet. She trained with commanders from a dozen different military traditions. She shared tactics and strategies with beings who had never met a human before, and slowly something that looked like hope began to grow. Marcus made another discovery. The components hidden in the Indomitable were indeed a key, part of a defense network built during humanity's first space age. Ancient weapons platforms scattered across the galaxy, waiting for activation. Nobody knew who had built them, or why they had trusted humanity with the key. But they were there, and they were powerful. The only problem was activation required precise coordinates, and those coordinates had been lost 20,000 years ago. Marcus was searching through corrupted databases trying to find them before time ran out. One evening, Sarah found Thakren in the observation deck, staring at the stars. The ambassador looked tired, older somehow despite his alien biology. "You risked everything to help us," Sarah said. "Why?" Thakren's antenna twitched in what she had learned was his species' equivalent of a shrug. "Because it was the right thing to do. Because the Council failed your people once and I couldn't let it happen again. And because I've seen what humanity can become when pushed to the edge. You don't surrender. You don't give up. You fight even when fighting seems hopeless. The galaxy needs that spirit right now." Sarah stood beside him, watching the ships of a dozen species training together in the distance. "We're going to need more than spirit. The Archons have had 18,000 years to prepare. We have months. Then we make those months count." The alert came 3 days later. Long-range sensors detected massive movement in the void. The Archon fleet was coming, and they were ahead of schedule. Sarah looked at her crew, at the Allied ships gathering around them, at the Indomitable's scarred hull reflected in the window. They weren't ready. They might never be ready, but they would fight anyway, because that's what humans did. The ruins of Haven Colony floated in the darkness, a graveyard of humanity's first attempt to reach the stars. It was here that the Allied fleet gathered, 7,000 ships from 23 species, all commanded by beings who had never fought together before. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and wondered if this would be enough. "All ships report ready," Marcus said from his station. He looked exhausted but determined, his hands steady on the controls. "The defense network is online. All platforms are responding to our commands." Sarah felt a moment of pride. Marcus had done it. He had found the coordinates buried in corrupted files and activated weapons that had been sleeping for 20 millennia. Ancient platforms hidden throughout the sector were powering up, adding their firepower to the defensive line. "Captain, they're here," Dr. Okonkwo announced. The Archon fleet emerged from dimensional folds like a plague of locusts. Sarah had seen the sensor predictions, had studied the numbers, but seeing them in person was different. There were millions of ships, each one radiating power that made modern vessels look like toys. They moved in perfect formation, a unified consciousness spread across an armada. "All ships, this is Captain Chen. Hold your positions. Wait for my command." The Archons advanced slowly, confidently as if they knew victory was inevitable. Sarah watched them come and activated her personal communicator, speaking directly to the fleet commanders. "Remember your training. They'll try to establish psychic connections. Keep your neural dampeners active. Don't let them into your minds." The Kren's voice came through from his command ship. "Captain, our analysts believe the Archon flagship is at the center of their formation. If we can reach it, we might be able to disrupt their entire network." "That's a big if, Ambassador." "I know, but it's the only chance we have." Sarah made her decision. "Marcus, I need you to get a strike team to that flagship. Take volunteers only. Your mission is to penetrate their defenses and shut down their psychic network." "I'll go myself," Marcus said. "No. I need you here. I'll lead the strike team." The engineer turned to stare at her. "Captain, that's suicide." "Probably, but I'm the best qualified. I've studied their systems. I know how they think. And besides, someone needs to do it." She smiled at him. "Keep my ship safe, Marcus." "That's an order." The battle began with a wave of fire that turned space itself bright. The ancient defense platforms opened up first, their weapons powerful enough to vaporize Archon ships in single hits. The Allied fleet followed, 7,000 ships unleashing everything they had. For a moment, Sarah let herself hope. They were holding. Then the Archons activated their network. The psychic wave hit like a tsunami, crashing through neural patterns and seeking minds to control. Half the fleet went silent in seconds, their crews overwhelmed by the mental assault. Ships turned on their former allies, firing at vessels that had been beside them moments before. The defensive line collapsed into chaos, but not everywhere. Human ships kept fighting, their neural chemistry providing natural resistance. Species with strong mental shields held out longer, and slowly, desperately, the fleet adapted, using neural dampeners and psychic countermeasures that Earth had spent 15,000 years developing. Sarah launched from the Indomitable in a strike craft, leading a team of 12 volunteers from 6 different species. They dove into the heart of the Archon formation, dodging fire and destruction, heading for the flagship that controlled everything. The Archon command ship was a monster, larger than any station Sarah had ever seen. Its hull was covered in biological components that pulsed with unnatural light. As they approached, she felt pressure building in her mind, the network trying to force its way into her consciousness. She gritted her teeth and pushed it away. The strike team breached the hull and fought their way inside. The interior was a nightmare, a fusion of technology and biology that seemed to writhe as they moved through it. Archon defenders met them with weapons and telepathic attacks. Sarah's team fought back with everything they had, advancing meter by meter toward the core. By the time they reached the central chamber, only 4 of them remained. Sarah, the Kren, and 2 others whose names she forced herself to remember, even as exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. The chamber was vast, filled with machinery that hummed with power. At the center was a being that barely looked biological anymore, more machine than flesh, connected to thousands of cables that pulsed with neural energy. The Archon commander spoke directly into her mind. "You are impressive, Captain Chen. Your species resists us better than any we have encountered. But you cannot win. We have evolved beyond your comprehension. We bring unity, an end to conflict and suffering. Why do you fight against peace? Sarah raised her weapon. Because your peace means slavery. Because you take away choice. Because beings deserve to make their own mistakes and find their own way. A romantic notion, but ultimately futile. We have already studied your neural patterns. We know how to break your resistance now. When this battle ends, humanity will join our network willingly. Dr. Okonkwo's voice crackled through Sarah's communicator. Captain, I've analyzed the network. It's quantum-based, operating on frequencies that most species can't naturally perceive. But human brain patterns disrupt those frequencies. You're not immune by accident. Someone engineered humanity specifically to resist this kind of control. The realization hit Sarah like a physical blow. Humans weren't naturally resistant to the Archon network. They had been designed that way, modified millions of years ago by some species that knew this threat would come. Humanity had been created as a weapon, a defense mechanism against psychic slavery. Captain, there's more, Okonkwo continued. The network needs a mediator, a consciousness to maintain stability. Right now, the Archons use enslaved minds for that purpose. But if someone willingly connected to the network, someone with human neural patterns, they could transform it. They could give free will back to every being connected to it. Sarah understood. She understood what Okonkwo was telling her, what choice she had to make. If she connected to the network willingly, if she let it into her mind while maintaining her resistance, she could become the mediator. She could save billions of enslaved beings across the galaxy, but she would have to give up her physical existence, becoming a consciousness spread across the network forever. She looked at Thakren. The ambassador's compound eyes showed understanding and sorrow. You don't have to do this, Captain. We'll find another way. There is no other way. You know that. Sarah walked to the central interface and placed her hands on the controls. The Archon commander tried to stop her, but Thakren fired, destroying the being's physical form. The network shuddered, losing its coordinator, becoming unstable. Sarah closed her eyes and opened her mind. The flood of consciousness was overwhelming. Billions of minds, all connected, all enslaved. She felt their pain, their trapped screams, their desperate hope. And she felt the network itself, a vast machine of thought and control. It tried to consume her, to break her will and add her to the collective. But she was human, and humans didn't break. Sarah pushed back. She took her resistance, her free will, her stubborn refusal to surrender, and she spread it through the network like fire. She showed every trapped consciousness what freedom meant. She gave them back their choice. The network transformed. It didn't die, but it changed, becoming something new. A connection between minds that allowed communication without control. A shared consciousness that preserved individual identity. And at the center of it all was Sarah Chen, the eternal mediator. The guardian who would ensure no one could ever use the network for slavery again. Outside, the Archon fleet stopped fighting. Millions of ships hung in space as their crews suddenly regained control of their own minds. Some fled, some surrendered. Some simply shut down, their pilots overwhelmed by the sudden return of freedom. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Marcus watched as the battle ended. He felt tears streaming down his face as he realized what Sarah had done, what she had sacrificed. The captain's chair sat empty, but her voice came through every speaker in the fleet, calm and strong and somehow everywhere at once. This is Captain Sarah Chen. The network is secured. The Archons are defeated. All ships stand down. The war is over. The days that followed were chaos. The Galactic Council had to deal with millions of freed beings, former Archon slaves who suddenly had nowhere to go. Earth opened its borders, offering sanctuary to any who needed it. The Terran Commonwealth became a beacon of hope, proof that freedom could survive even the darkest oppression. Marcus stayed on the Indomitable, unable to leave the ship that had been his home for so long. He found comfort in the daily routines of maintenance and repair. And sometimes, late at night, he would sit in the captain's chair and talk to the empty air, knowing somehow that Sarah could hear him. Thakren became the new council chairman, elected unanimously after his role in the war. He spent his days building bridges between species, ensuring that no world would ever be abandoned again, and he made sure that Earth's story, humanity's true history, was taught to every child in every school across the galaxy. Dr. Okonkwo became Earth's ambassador, traveling to distant worlds and sharing the knowledge humanity had gained through suffering. She carried with her the message that Sarah had died to prove, that freedom was worth any sacrifice. and that no being should ever be forced to surrender their will. The Indomitable was placed in memorial orbit around Earth, a monument to the crew who had left home 20,000 years ago and returned to save the galaxy. Children would look up at night and see it, a bright point of light in the sky, and their parents would tell them stories about the captain who became eternal. And in the network, Sarah Chen existed as something more than human and less than God. She watched over the connected consciousness, feeling every thought and emotion of beings across the galaxy. She was lonely sometimes, cut off from physical existence, but she was not alone. Billions of minds touched hers every day, sharing their joys and sorrows, their hopes and fears. She had become the guardian of their freedom, the protector of their right to choose. On Earth, in the capital city, they built a statue of a woman in an ancient military uniform. The inscription at its base read, "Captain Sarah Chen. She ensured we would never be forgotten." And above the planet, in the network that connected minds across the stars, Sarah smiled. The galaxy had forgotten Earth once, but now, because of what she and her crew had sacrificed, humanity would be remembered forever. The war was over. The fight for freedom would never end, but for the first time in 20,000 years, Earth and its children were not alone. They were part of something larger, something better. They were part of a galaxy that had learned, through suffering and sacrifice, that every being deserved the right to choose their own destiny, and that was worth everything. Captain Jack Miller stood at the viewport of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon, his eyes fixed on the strange collection of ships that drifted before him. They were unlike anything he had seen before, a mismatched fleet of small vessels that seemed to be barely holding together. The ships showed signs of damage, with makeshift repairs visible even from this distance. "What do you make of it, Sam?" Jack asked, turning to his communications officer. Samantha Powell looked up from her console, her brow furrowed in concentration. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies, sir. It looks like a distress call. Can you clean it up?" Sam nodded, her fingers dancing across the controls. A moment later, a strange musical language filled the bridge. It was beautiful, but completely alien. "Run it through the translator," Jack ordered. The computer worked for several seconds before a halting voice emerged. "Help. Please help. We are the last. They hunt us. No one will help." Jack frowned. "Open a channel." When Sam nodded that the line was open, Jack cleared his throat. "This is Captain Jack Miller of the Earth vessel Horizon. We've received your distress call. Please identify yourselves." There was a long pause before the reply came. "We are Nylari, last 12,000 of our kind, fleeing death. Can you help us?" Jack exchanged glances with his first officer, Commander Ben Foster. "We should inform Earth Command," Ben suggested. Jack nodded in agreement. "Tell them we're making first contact with a refugee species. Request instructions." While they waited for a response from Earth, Jack ordered a closer approach to the alien fleet. As they drew near, their sensors revealed more about the condition of the refugee ships. Life support was failing on several vessels. Power systems were operating at minimal levels, and most concerning, there were signs that these ships had recently been in combat. "Sir," said Lieutenant Olivia Hayes from the tactical station, "I'm detecting weapons damage on most of their vessels. Some of it appears recent, within the last few days. Who's hunting them?" Jack wondered aloud. The answer came sooner than expected. The ship's sensors chimed an alert, and Olivia straightened in her chair. "Captain, long-range scanners have detected a large group of ships entering the system. Their energy signatures are completely different from the refugee vessels." "How many?" 23 ships, sir. And they're big, much larger than the Horizon." Jack turned to Sam. "See if you can get more information from the refugees. I want to know what we're dealing with." Sam established contact with what appeared to be the lead Nylari ship. To everyone's surprise, they requested permission to send a representative aboard the Horizon. "They say they can explain everything better in person," Sam reported. After security checks, Jack approved the request. Within the hour, the first Nylari set foot on the Horizon. The alien was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large, expressive eyes that seemed to catch and reflect light in unusual ways. 4 long fingers, adorned each hand, and its movements were graceful despite obvious exhaustion. "I am Elder Lyra," the Nylari said, bowing slightly. Its voice was melodic even through the translator. "Thank you for answering our call when so many have turned away." Jack led Elder Lyra to the ship's conference room where key crew members had gathered. Dr. Alan Nichols, the ship's xenobiologist, couldn't hide his fascination as he scanned the visitor. "Your species is telepathic," Alan blurted out, studying his readings. Lyra turned those reflective eyes toward him and nodded. "Yes, it is why we are hunted." The story that unfolded over the next hour chilled everyone in the room. The Nylari were a peaceful species whose natural telepathic abilities had made them targets of the Vorn Dominion, a militaristic empire that saw the Nylari as evolutionary aberrations too dangerous to exist. "They fear what they cannot understand," Lyra explained. "Our minds are open to each other in ways the Vorn cannot comprehend. They believe we can control others, though we cannot. We only share and receive thoughts when both minds are willing." "UI said others have turned you away," Jack said. "Who?" "We have approached 17 civilizations in the Galactic Council," Lyra replied, a note of sadness entering their melodic voice. "All refuse to help. They fear the Vorn too much to stand against them." "And those ships entering the system now?" Olivia asked. "A Vorn hunting fleet. They have tracked us across 7 star systems. We thought we had escaped, but they always find us." Lyra's hands trembled slightly. "Our children are starving. Our ships fail. We have nowhere left to run." At that moment, Sam entered the conference room. "Captain, we've received a response from Earth Command. They want to speak with you immediately." The heated debate that followed with Earth leadership played out on the main screen. Some officials argued that humanity was too new to galactic affairs to get involved in conflicts between alien species. Others pointed out that Earth's military was no match for the advanced technology of the Vorn. "We've seen their weapons capabilities," General Claire Peterson said grimly. "If we provoke them, they could devastate Earth." Jack listened to all the arguments, then spoke. "With respect, General, we're talking about the survival of an entire species, 12,000 individuals, all that remains of their civilization. They've approached 17 advanced races for help and been turned away. Are we going to be the 18th? Lieutenant Olivia Hayes stepped forward, unable to remain silent. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" When Jack nodded, Olivia addressed the officials on the screen. "We joined Starfleet to explore, to learn, and to represent the best of humanity. If we turn these people away knowing they face extinction, what does that say about us? Our ancestors once turned away refugees and regretted it for generations. Will we make the same mistake on a galactic scale?" The debate continued until a proximity alert sounded. Olivia rushed to a nearby console. "The Vorn fleet has increased speed. They'll be within weapons range in 6 hours." As uncertainty hung in the air, Dr. Alan Nichols made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, I've been studying the Nylari physiology. Their telepathic abilities aren't just a means of communication. They have remarkable healing properties. This could revolutionize human medicine, especially for neurological disorders we haven't been able to treat." Jack looked back at the screen where Earth's leadership was still deliberating. "We don't have time for more debate. These people need our help now. I'm asking for permission to offer them protection." There was a long silence before the President herself appeared on screen. "Captain Miller, what you're asking could bring us into conflict with a superior force." "Yes, Madam President. But sometimes being human means standing up even when you're outmatched." The President's expression was grave as she considered the implications. After what seemed like an eternity, she nodded. "Very well, Captain. Offer them sanctuary in Earth space. Commander Doyle is already en route to your position with 3 additional vessels. They were sending supplies to the Centauri colony, but I'm diverting them to you. Do what you can until they arrive." As the communication ended, Jack turned to Elder Lyra, whose eyes had widened during the exchange. "Your people would risk war for strangers?" Lyra asked in disbelief. "It wouldn't be the first time," Jack replied with a small smile. Tell your people they're under Earth's protection now. We're bringing you home with us. As Jack issued orders to prepare for the arrival of both the reinforcements and the approaching Vorn fleet, he knew they were making history. For better or worse, humanity had just announced its moral stance to the galaxy. 3 Earth vessels appeared at the edge of the system, pushing their engines to the limit as they raced toward the horizon. Commander Eric Doyle stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Defiant, watching as the distance to Captain Miller's position steadily decreased. "Status report," Eric called out, his eyes never leaving the main screen. "We're at maximum speed, sir," replied the helmsman. "ETA to rendezvous point is 42 minutes. Eric nodded grimly. "And the Vorn fleet?" "They'll reach the refugee ships in just under 3 hours. It wasn't much time, but it would have to be enough." Eric's ships had been hastily retrofitted, with extra weapons and shields after receiving the President's orders. The cargo holds that once carried supplies for the Centauri colony now contained emergency rations, medical equipment, and spare parts for the failing Nylari vessels. Back on the horizon, Captain Jack Miller was coordinating with the Nylari to prepare for evacuation. Elder Lyra had returned to the main refugee ship to help organize their people, while engineer Madison Clark led a team to assess which Nylari vessels could make the journey to Earth and which were beyond repair. "We have a problem, Captain," Madison reported over the comm. "At least 4 of their ships won't survive a long-distance jump. Life support is barely functioning and their engines are shot." Jack frowned. "How many people are on those ships?" "About 3,000, sir. We'll need to distribute them among our vessels and their remaining functional ships," Jack decided. "Begin transfer preparations." As Jack ended the communication, Sam called out from her station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Vorn fleet." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a harsh, angular face. The alien's skin was deep gray with ridged features that gave it a perpetually angry expression. When it spoke, the voice was cold and precise. "I am Admiral Krell of the Vorn Dominion. You are harboring biological aberrations that have been deemed a threat to galactic stability. Withdraw your vessel immediately, or face elimination alongside the aberrations." Jack stepped forward. "This is Captain Jack Miller of Earth. The Nylari are under our protection now. They've done nothing to warrant persecution." Admiral Krell's expression didn't change. "Your species is young and ignorant of galactic matters. The Nylari represent an evolutionary dead end that threatens natural development. Their telepathic abilities are a corruption that must be purged. We've examined the Nylari. They're peaceful and pose no threat to anyone," Jack replied firmly. "Your assessment is irrelevant. Earth has no standing in the Galactic Council. Remove your vessel within 1 planetary rotation, or be destroyed with the aberrations." The transmission cut off. Abruptly, Jack turned to his crew. "Opinions?" Ben Foster, his first officer, spoke first. "They're serious about this. From what Elder Lyra told us, the Vorn have been systematically hunting down the Nylari for years." "But why?" Olivia asked. "What could they possibly gain from wiping out an entire species?" Before anyone could answer, Sam interrupted. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission. Multiple signals, actually. They appear to be from several Galactic Council representatives. One by one, the faces of different alien species appeared on the screen. They expressed varying degrees of concern and outrage at Earth's interference. "The humans do not understand what they are doing," said a reptilian alien with elaborate head crests. "This is not your conflict," added another with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. "The Vorn are a founding member of the Council. Earth is not even a recognized associate." A third representative, whose translucent skin revealed pulsing organs beneath, spoke more directly. "We strongly advise you to withdraw, Captain Miller. The Vorn will not hesitate to destroy your ship and then pursue your homeworld for this offense." Jack listened to each warning with growing frustration. "With respect," he finally replied, "if the Council is aware of what's happening to the Nylari, why haven't you intervened? They've nearly been wiped out." The aliens exchanged uncomfortable glances. The reptilian representative answered, "The internal affairs of the Vorn Dominion are not subject to council oversight." "Genocide isn't an internal affair," Jack shot back. As the debate continued, Dr. Alan Nichols was in the medical bay making a remarkable discovery. He had been studying the samples he'd taken from Elder Lyra with permission, fascinated by the Nylari brain structure. "This is incredible," he murmured, reviewing the neural scans. A young Nylari child who had been brought aboard for emergency treatment watched him curiously from a nearby bed. "What is incredible?" the child asked through the translator. Alan looked up, surprised. "Oh, I didn't realize you were awake. I was just studying how your brain works. It's very different from ours." The child tilted their head. "I can show you if you want." "Show me? How would you—" Before Alan could finish, the child reached out and gently touched his hand. Instantly, Alan felt a strange sensation, like a door opening in his mind. Images and feelings flowed into his consciousness, not invasive or overwhelming, but warm and curious, like a friendly conversation without words. When the connection ended a moment later, Alan stared at the child, in amazement. "That was... I felt what you were feeling. You showed me your memories." The child nodded. "This is how we learn. This is how we heal." Alan's scientific mind raced with the implications. "Can you show me more about healing?" Meanwhile, Commander, Eric Doyle's ships had arrived and joined the Horizon in defensive formation around the Nylari fleet. Eric met with Jack in the Horizon's conference room to coordinate their next moves. "Earth Command wants us to escort them back as quickly as possible," Eric explained. "We've brought emergency supplies and repair teams to get their ships moving." "Some won't make it," Jack replied. "We'll need to evacuate about 3,000 refugees onto our vessels." Eric nodded. "We'll make it work. The Defiant can take about 1,000. The others can split the rest." Their planning was interrupted when Olivia burst into the room. "Sirs, we have a new problem. Council ships have just entered the system." "Reinforcements?" Eric asked hopefully. Olivia shook her head. "No, sir. They're positioning themselves between us and the jump point to Earth. They claim they're not taking sides, but they're blocking our escape route," Jack finished, "making sure we can't leave before the Vorn arrive." On the engineering deck, Madison Clark was working with Nylari technicians to integrate some of their technology with Earth systems. Despite the language barrier, they had discovered that certain Nylari crystals could significantly boost shield capacity. "If we can get these calibrated correctly," Madison explained to a Nylari engineer named Talon, "we might stand a chance against the Vorn weapons." Talon nodded, his long fingers adjusting the crystal matrix. "Our technology is not meant for war, but it can be adapted." As the humans and Nylari worked together to prepare for the coming conflict, a sense of unity began to form between the two species. They were strangers from different worlds, but in the face of a common threat, differences seemed to matter less than their shared determination to survive. The Vorn fleet drew ever closer, and time was running out. Captain Jack Miller knew they were outmatched, but he also knew that sometimes being human meant standing up for what was right, even against impossible odds. The bridge of the Horizon was tense as Captain Jack Miller studied the tactical display. The Vorn fleet had entered the system and was moving steadily toward their position. The Council ships maintained their blockade of the jump point to Earth, effectively trapping them. "Options?" Jack asked, looking at his officers. Olivia Hayes pointed to a gap in the Council formation. "There's a weak spot here. If we time it right, we might be able to punch through with part of our fleet." "And the rest?" Ben Foster asked quietly. Jack knew what his first officer was really asking. Someone would need to stay behind to hold off the Vorn while the others escaped. He looked around at the faces of his crew, people he had served with for years, people he trusted with his life. "I need volunteers to remain with the Horizon and cover the retreat," Jack said. "Commander Doyle will lead the escape with as many Nylari ships as possible." To no one's surprise, every officer on the bridge stepped forward. Jack smiled sadly. "I appreciate the spirit, but we need our best people getting those refugees to safety." He made quick assignments, splitting his crew between those who would stay and those who would go. When Eric Doyle was informed of the plan, he objected strongly. "Jack, this is suicide. Let me stay with the Horizon instead. Your ships are faster and better armed," Jack replied firmly. "You have a better chance of getting through the blockade and defending the refugees. That's the mission, Eric." Reluctantly, Eric agreed. The 4 human vessels, along with the 11 remaining Nilari ships, formed up in preparation for the desperate escape attempt. The 3,000 Nilari, whose ships were beyond repair, had been distributed among the human vessels. Madison Clark had successfully integrated Nilari crystal technology into their shields, giving them what she called a fighting chance against Vorn weapons. "The Vorn fleet will be in firing range in 20 minutes, Olivia reported. Jack opened a channel to all ships. "This is Captain Miller. We have one chance to get through that blockade. The Horizon will engage the Vorn to buy time. All other vessels will make for the jump point at maximum speed." He paused before adding, "It has been an honor to serve with all of you." As the fleet prepared for the desperate maneuver, security, Chief Kyle Bennett approached Jack with an unexpected proposal. "Sir, I'd like permission to lead a boarding party onto one of the Vorn vessels," he said. Jack stared at him in disbelief. "A boarding party? That's even more suicidal than what we're already planning." Kyle shook his head. "Not necessarily. The Nilari have shown us that their smaller ships can evade Vorn sensors. We could approach in one of those attached to a Vorn vessel and capture vital intelligence about their weapon systems." "You realize you'd likely have no way back," Jack said quietly. "I understand, sir. But if we're making a last stand, let's make it count." After consideration, Jack approved the plan. Kyle selected 5 volunteers from security, and 2 Nilari who knew how to operate their stealth vessels joined them. As the Vorn fleet approached, Jack gave the signal. The combined human Nilari fleet surged forward, with the Horizon at the front, shields at maximum. Kyle's team launched in their small craft, immediately cloaking from sensors as they veered toward the largest Vorn vessel. The Horizon fired first, its weapons enhanced with Nilari technology. The shot struck the lead Vorn ship, causing more damage than expected. For a moment, the Vorn seemed surprised by the effectiveness of Earth weapons. "They're responding," Olivia called out. "Multiple targeting locks." The Vorn returned fire, and despite the enhanced shields, the Horizon shuddered under the impact. Behind them, the rest of the fleet accelerated toward the Council blockade. On Earth, news of the conflict had spread quickly. Public opinion had galvanized around protecting the Nilari. The president addressed the world, explaining the situation and the choice that had been made. "Today, humanity stands for something greater than self-interest," she said. "We stand for the belief that all sentient life deserves protection, that genocide is never acceptable, no matter who commits it or why." Preparations began for Operation Sanctuary, readying Earth for both Nilari settlement and potential Vorn retaliation. Military bases went on high alert, and civilian shelters were prepared. Back in space, the battle intensified. The Horizon took heavy damage but continued to draw Vorn fire away from the escaping ships. Jack ordered erratic maneuvers, confusing the Vorn targeting systems just enough to buy precious seconds. Communications specialist Daniel Wright managed to hack into the Galactic Council's public broadcast network. Footage of Vorn attacks on Nilari civilian ships streamed to countless worlds, showing the truth of what had been happening while the Council looked away. Aboard the Vorn command ship, Kyle's team moved silently through the corridors. The aliens were taller than humans with rigid postures and angular features. Using Nilari telepathic abilities to detect approaching crew, they made their way to what appeared to be a central computer hub. "Keep watch," Kyle whispered to his team as he and a tech specialist began downloading Vorn tactical data. The main screen suddenly showed a Vorn officer. "Intruders detected in Sector 7, the officer announced. "Security teams respond." "Time to go," Kyle said, grabbing the completed data transfer. Back to the ship, they fought their way back through the corridors, losing 2 team members in the process. When they reached their craft, Kyle sent a transmission to the horizon. "Captain, mission accomplished. We have their weapons specifications and fleet movements." "Jack's," voice came back, breaking up through static. "Good work. Severe damage. Core breach imminent. Get that data to Earth." Kyle understood. The horizon was dying. "What about extraction, sir?" There was a pause before Jack replied. "No extraction possible. Complete your mission, Chief." While Kyle's team escaped with the crucial intelligence, the horizon fought its final battle. The ship was barely holding together, with multiple decks exposed to space and most weapons offline. Jack looked around at his remaining crew, those who had volunteered to stay knowing what it meant. "Target their lead vessel. All remaining power to engines." The horizon surged forward in one final desperate charge, straight toward the Vorn flagship. As they closed the distance, Jack opened a channel that broadcast to all ships in the area, including the watching council vessels. "They may call them aberrations," he said clearly. "We call them neighbors." The horizon rammed into the Vorn flagship, its remaining weapons firing at point-blank range. The explosion was visible across the system, temporarily blinding sensors. In the confusion, Commander Doyle's ships, along with the Nylari vessels, broke through the council blockade. Several council ships moved as if to intercept, then held position, their captains perhaps affected by what they had just witnessed. "Captain, Miller and the Horizon are gone," Ben Foster reported solemnly aboard the Defiant. "They took out 3 Vorn ships with them." Eric Doyle nodded, grief evident in his eyes. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed. Let's make sure their sacrifice wasn't for nothing." As the surviving ships jumped away, leaving the battle behind, the Nylari aboard sang a soft, haunting melody, a song of remembrance for those who had given their lives for strangers from the stars. 2 weeks after the battle, the surviving ships arrived in Earth space. The journey had been difficult. Several Nylari vessels had barely made it, their engines failing in the final hours. The human ships had towed them the rest of the way. Lieutenant Gloria Foster, now commanding the damaged escort vessel Defiance, stood at the viewport as they approached Earth. Behind her, the bridge was crowded with Nylari children who had never seen a blue planet before. Their soft gasps of wonder reminded her why they had fought so hard. "It's beautiful," said Talon, the Nylari engineer who had worked with Madison Clark to enhance their shields. "We had heard stories of water worlds, but to see one," Gloria smiled at him. "Welcome to your new home." But the welcome was mixed with troubling news. Commander Eric Doyle was immediately summoned to Earth Command, where he learned the full consequences of their actions. "The Galactic Council has imposed severe sanctions on Earth," General Peterson explained to the assembled officers. "All trade and diplomatic relations have been cut off. Several of our outer colonies are already reporting supply shortages." "What about the Vorn?" Eric asked. The general's expression darkened. "They're mobilizing. Our long-range probes show they're assembling a much larger fleet than the one you encountered. Intelligence suggests they'll launch an assault on Earth within months." "We knew the risks," Eric replied. "And so did Captain Miller." The general nodded solemnly. His final message has been playing throughout Earth space. Public support for the Nylari is overwhelming. The president has authorized full integration of the refugees and immediate preparations for defense. The Nylari were temporarily housed in large facilities around the globe, but soon the first permanent settlements were established in remote areas of the Pacific Northwest and Northern Australia. Despite the resource shortages caused by the Council sanctions, many humans volunteered to help the refugees build new homes. Gloria Foster worked closely with Nylari engineers, using the knowledge and technology they offered to enhance Earth's defensive capabilities. It was a race against time, trying to prepare for a Vorn assault that would surely overwhelm them unless they found some advantage. "These shield modifications will help," Talon explained as they worked on upgrading Earth's orbital defense platforms. "But we cannot match Vorn firepower." "Then we'll have to be smarter than them," Gloria replied, studying the designs. "What about the data Chief Bennett recovered? Has it been fully analyzed?" Kyle Bennett had returned safely with his surviving team members and the stolen Vorn intelligence. The data had been immediately sent to Earth's best scientists and military strategists. There's something important there, Talon said. Something my people have suspected but never confirmed. The Vorn didn't attack us out of simple hatred. They attacked us out of fear. Gloria looked up, surprised. Fear? Of what? Our telepathic abilities, Talon explained. The Vorn subjugate other species using a form of mind control technology. They feared that as our abilities evolved, we might eventually be able to resist their control or even counter it. This revelation changed how Earth viewed the conflict. It wasn't just about protecting the Nilari. It was about preventing the Vorn from expanding their control to other worlds, including, eventually, Earth. Meanwhile, in a settlement medical center, a young Nilari child named Vila was recovering from injuries sustained during the escape. Nurse Patricia Alvarez had been caring for her for days, learning to communicate through a mixture of translated words and simple gestures. You're getting better every day, Patricia said as she checked Vila's vital signs. Vila reached out and gently touched Patricia's hand. I want to show you something. Patricia felt a strange but pleasant sensation, like a warm current flowing between them. Suddenly, she was experiencing Vila's memories, the beauty of the Nilari homeworld before the Vorn came, the terror of fleeing from planet to planet, and finally, the overwhelming gratitude when humans offered help when no one else would. When the connection ended, Patricia had tears in her eyes. I felt everything you felt. Vila nodded. This is how we share. This is how we understand each other. Can all your people do this? Patricia asked. Yes, but it requires trust. Both minds must be willing. This interaction led to a breakthrough in human Nilari relations. As more humans experienced this telepathic sharing, a deeper understanding formed between the species. Doctors began studying how Nilari telepathy might be used to help treat human psychological trauma and certain neurological conditions. Dr. Alan Nichols, who had survived aboard one of the evacuation ships, established a research center dedicated to studying Nilari abilities. Their telepathic healing techniques could revolutionize human medicine, he explained to a group of colleagues. They can directly share emotional states, memories, and even help reorganize neural pathways damaged by injury or disease. In exchange for sanctuary, the Nilari freely offered their most precious knowledge, advanced medical techniques, telepathic training, and technology that began to transform human science. It was a partnership born of necessity but growing into something more profound. Earth's economy struggled under the Council sanctions, but humanity's resourcefulness prevailed. New supply lines were established to the colonies, and alternative materials were found for critical components previously imported from Council worlds. 3 months after the Nilari arrived, the intelligence recovered by Kyle Bennett was finally fully decrypted. It confirmed what Talon had said. The Vorn feared Nilari telepathic abilities because they might interfere with the mind control techniques used to dominate their empire. Even more significantly, the data contained the locations of several worlds where enslaved species lived under Vorn control. If these populations could be freed, the Vorn would lose much of their power. Gloria Foster presented these findings to Earth Command. We have an opportunity here. The Vorn aren't as united as they appear. If we can disrupt their control over these subjugated worlds, we might prevent the attack altogether. That's a big risk, General Peterson replied. We'd be going from defense to offense. We're already at war, General, Gloria said firmly. Captain Miller knew that when he made his stand. We can honor his sacrifice by finishing what he started, not just protecting the Nilari, but freeing others from Vorn control. As Earth debated this new strategy, long-range sensors detected movement at the edge of the solar system. Ships were arriving, but they weren't Vorn vessels. We're receiving identification signals, announced the operator at Earth's defense headquarters. 3 vessels from Council races, the Tellarites, Morrigan, and Zan Collective. Are they hostile? The general asked. No, sir. They're broadcasting on open frequencies. They say they've come to help. The arrival of these ships brought unexpected hope. It seemed that Captain Miller's final stand and Daniel Wright's broadcast of Vorn atrocities had affected some council races, enough to break ranks. Perhaps humanity wasn't as alone in the galaxy as they had feared. 6 months after the Nylari arrived on Earth, the combined fleet of human and allied ships stood ready in Earth orbit. The 3 council races that had broken away to help humanity, the Tellarites, Morrigan, and Zan Collective, had brought advanced technology and valuable intelligence about Vorn weaknesses. Admiral Frank Rivera, who now commanded Earth's defense forces, stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship Guardian. "Status report," he called. "Vorn fleet has entered the outer solar system," reported the sensor officer. 87 ships detected moving in attack formation. Despite the reinforcements from their new allies, they were still heavily outnumbered. But they had something the Vorn didn't expect, a plan developed by humans and Nylari working together. "Signal all ships," Frank ordered. "Begin Operation Harmony." On the surface of Earth, in a specially built facility, 300 Nylari telepaths sat in a circle, joined by 50 human volunteers who had shown sensitivity to Nylari telepathic connections. Among them was Patricia Alvarez, who had formed a deep bond with young Vila. Dr. Alan Nichols supervised the gathering, monitoring their vital signs as they prepared for an unprecedented effort. "Remember," he said to the assembled group, "we're not trying to control the Vorn. We're trying to reach those they've enslaved, to help them break free." The Nylari had spent months studying the Vorn psychology through the captured data. They had developed a targeted telepathic broadcast that could disrupt Vorn command structures and help the subjugated species resist mind control. "Begin the link," Alan said softly. The Nylari joined hands, their minds connecting in a powerful network. The humans among them served as amplifiers, their brains acting like relay stations to boost the signal. Patricia felt Vila's mind touch hers, and then they were connected to hundreds of others, their thoughts forming a unified wave. In space, the Vorn fleet approached with overwhelming force, their weapons charged, targeting Earth's defenses. "They're opening fire," called out Gloria Foster from her position on the Defiance. The first volley struck Earth's enhanced shields, which held better than expected thanks to Nylari crystal technology. The human and allied ships returned fire, focusing on the weak points identified in Kyle Bennett's stolen data. "Vorn flagship is targeting the Guardian," the tactical officer reported to Admiral Rivera. "Hold position," Frank ordered. "We need to give the telepathic team time." On Earth, the combined human-Nylari telepathic network projected their unified message across space, targeting the thousands of enslaved beings aboard the Vorn vessels. It wasn't a command or an attack, it was a simple truth that resonated through their shared consciousness. "You are not alone. You can resist. We stand with you." Aboard the Vorn ships, something unexpected began to happen. The enslaved crew, members, beings from a dozen different species forced to serve under Vorn mind control, began to shake off their mental shackles. Years of suppressed resistance surged to the surface, strengthened by the telepathic support from Earth. "We're detecting unusual activity on multiple Vorn vessels," Gloria reported. "Power fluctuations, erratic movements. Some ships have stopped firing completely." Frank leaned forward. "This is it. Signal all ships to target the vessels still under Vorn control. Avoid firing on the ships showing signs of rebellion." The battle shifted dramatically as nearly a third of the Vorn fleet fell into chaos. On some ships, the enslaved crew members openly rebelled against their Vorn masters. On others, the Vorn maintained control but were busy fighting internal battles, rather than attacking Earth. The Allied fleet pressed the advantage, focusing their fire on the remaining Vorn vessels. The Defiance, under Gloria's command, led a strike team that disabled the Vorn flagship's main weapons. "Admiral," Gloria called, "we've opened a gap in their defenses. Should we board their command ship?" "Negative," Frank replied. "Our goal isn't to destroy them. It's to free their captives and force a retreat." The telepathic broadcast continued, growing stronger as more subjugated beings broke free and added their own mental strength to the network. The Vorn commanders, facing rebellion on their own ships and a more effective defense than expected, began to fall back. "They're retreating," the sensor officer announced with disbelief in his voice. The Vorn fleet is breaking formation and withdrawing from the system. On Earth, the telepathic circle slowly released their connection. Many were exhausted, some unconscious from the effort, but their faces showed triumph. They had done what was thought impossible. They had repelled a Vorn invasion without destroying most of the fleet. "Why aren't we pursuing them?" asked a young officer on the Guardian. "Because this was never about destroying the Vorn," Frank explained. "It was about showing there's another way. Cooperation instead of domination." In the days that followed, several liberated ships from the Vorn fleet approached Earth. Their crews, beings of various species who had been enslaved for generations, requested asylum and offered to stand with Earth against any future attacks. News of the battle spread quickly through Council space. The fact that humans had defended themselves without resorting to genocide made an impression. More Council members began to question their policy of non-interference and tolerance of Vorn aggression. 1 month after the battle, Earth received a formal communication from the Galactic Council. The sanctions were being lifted, and Earth was invited to join as a full member, with the Nilari recognized as under Earth's protection. "They're afraid of us now," Eric Doyle suggested, as Earth's leadership discussed the invitation. "No," replied the president. "They respect us. There's a difference. We showed them that standing up for what's right isn't just idealism, it's strength." 1 year after first contact, a memorial ceremony was held for the crew of the Horizon. A monument had been erected in a park where human and Nilari children played together. The statue depicted Captain Jack Miller standing beside Elder Lyra, their hands extended toward the stars. Admiral Frank Rivera unveiled a new class of Earth, ships designed with Nilari assistance. "These vessels aren't just warships," he explained to the gathered crowd. "They're exploration ships, medical ships, rescue ships, built to continue what the Horizon started." The lead ship of this new class was christened the Miller in honor of the captain who had made the first stand. Its crew included both humans and Nilari, working side by side as equals. Gloria Foster had been given command, with Talon serving as her chief engineer. As the ceremony concluded, a message arrived from deep space. Another refugee species had been detected fleeing from persecution in a distant sector. Without hesitation, Earth dispatched ships to offer sanctuary and assistance. "A year ago we were alone in the galaxy," the president said in her address, "newcomers to a community that seemed indifferent to suffering. Today we stand as its conscience." The Miller departed Earth orbit, leading a small fleet to meet the new refugees. On its hull was emblazoned a new motto, written in both human and Nilari script: "None left behind." As they accelerated to jump speed, Gloria Foster looked at her. Mixed crew, humans and Nilari working in perfect harmony. She thought of Captain Miller of the Horizon's sacrifice, and of how one act of courage had changed the course of galactic history. "Set course for the refugee coordinates," she ordered. "Let's bring them home."